What is going on, Dolphins fans? Welcome to the Fins Up Network. It's Ben Morgan, and it is time for the final preview and prediction video for the Dolphins' Week 12 matchup against the Texans coming back from the bye week. Got some viewer questions that were submitted. Going to be tackling all of those. Going to be giving my final score prediction for the Dolphins versus the Texans. But as always, I want to hear from you. Drop your final score predictions in the comment section. Let's load that puppy up with a bunch of Miami Dolphins victories. But let's jump right in. We got a lot of good questions to get to today. And the first one being, do you think the Dolphins have a greater edge with Kyle Allen starting over Davis Mills? Yes. So if you haven't heard the news, the Texans are reportedly benching Davis Mills in exchange for Kyle Allen. And in regards to do you think you have a greater edge? Yeah, sure. But let me say a few things about that. In regards to actual performance from these quarterbacks, I don't know that there's a huge difference. With Davis Mills, you get a young guy that they're trying to invest in. You're trying to see what you have. But this is where it gets confusing for me because you're 1-8-1. You're probably punting on Davis Mills. You're likely to get the first pick in the NFL draft. You probably take a quarterback. But is Davis Mills your backup? Are you trying to see what you have with there? I'm kind of confused as to why they're going with Kyle Allen because they've obviously seen enough from Davis Mills to know, you know what, he's not our guy. He leads the league in interceptions right now. But at the end of the day, I think you'd rather kind of have Davis Mills. You have draft capital invested in him. You'd like to see what you have potentially as a backup, but they're obviously going a different direction. So in regards to like a Vegas point spread, I don't think either of these guys moves the needle per se. Where I think the advantage comes in for the Dolphins is Davis Mills was the guy that was getting all the reps in practice with the ones over time. Kyle Allen wasn't getting those reps, so the timing might be off. The relationship that he has with the guys getting the ones might not be as strong with Davis Mills. So if there's an advantage, that's where the advantage lies, in my opinion. It's the timing, it's the reps with the ones. But at the end of the day, I don't know that either of these teams' performance or either of these guys' performance really dictates things one way or another in regards to like a Vegas point spread. Let's go on to the next one here. This is a good offensive line question here. Thoughts on making changes to the starting offensive line with Austin Jackson being healthy? So I've got a couple of thoughts on this because you look at the offseason. Austin Jackson goes out throughout training camp, throughout the preseason. He wins the starting right tackle job. Also, I hate the idea of kind of preventing the growth of a former first-round pick. Keep in mind, yes, we've had our ups and downs with Austin Jackson, more downs than ups, admittedly so, but he's 23 years old. The dude is younger than some of the guys that are going to be coming into this next year's NFL draft. So you don't really want to prevent the future growth. You want to see what you have. He's got a potential of a lot of good years left. But here's the difference between us right now and the Texans, because I talk about the Texans building for the future and seeing what they have in Davis Mills. Well, we're the exact opposite. We're playing for the right now. We have seen this offensive line gel the last few weeks with Robert Jones at left guard and with Brandon Shell at right tackle. What have they allowed? Like 2 sacks in the last 4 weeks on Tua, and we've seen the ground game emerge. So to answer the question, I don't think we can mess it up. I don't think we can change the unit that's currently been leading us so far over this last stretch of games. But you almost got to tread a little lightly here with Austin Jackson and just kind of put it out there and say, you know what, we've had this success. We don't want to mess with it. You're part of our future plans. But at the end of the day, our success right now is more important than anything. So we're not going to change anything. But it's almost, I use the word luxury just for lack of a better term, to be able to have Austin Jackson back if he indeed is healthy enough to go, because he can play left guard or he can play right tackle. So he can kind of be that 6th offensive lineman based on if an injury were to happen. And we've seen our offensive line take its share of injuries this year and in the past as well. So who knows? But right now, in regards to changing up the starting offensive line, I see why they could potentially do it, but I don't have a vote. But if I had a vote, I would say don't mess with what has been working. You're playing for now, and what you're doing right now is working. Let's go on to the next question. I like this one as well. Who is one Texans player we should keep an eye on? So I actually identified their rookie safety, Jaylen. His stats are scrolling along the bottom here, but he's got 69 tackles, a sack, 5 tackles for loss, and 2 interceptions already this rookie season. He was an early second-round pick from the Texans this last NFL draft, and he's been flashing. He's kind of like, I don't want to say he's just like Javon Holland, but like the hype and everything surrounding Holland his rookie season, that's kind of what the Texans are getting right now out of Petrie. And now if you think about the opportunity that he has on the table in front of him for this game, like I said, the Texans are 1-8-1. They're not going anywhere. But if he can kind of develop and emerge into one of these better safeties in the league and a guy they can build around, guess what this is? This game against the Dolphins is an opportunity. The Dolphins are 7-3. They're in the thick of things in the AFC East, thick of things in the AFC playoff picture. This is an opportunity for him to put some film out there. If he can get an interception, if he can force a fumble, if he can make some big hits, the Dolphins are starting to get highlights. We're on TV more. Like, this is a team that the national audience is starting to become a little bit more familiar with. So Petrie could see this game as, you know what? I'm a young guy. I'm having a good season. If I can disrupt Tua, if I can get in a matchup with Tyreek Hill or Jaylen Waddle, if I can put good film out there, I can be seen as a good young safety in this league. So I'm not saying he's a guy that you need to outright ignore, or not ignore, but if you need to like outright avoid, he's not really on that level. It's almost the other way. You can kind of take advantage of rookies in this situation, but that's an opportunity for him to continue to make a name for himself. Let's go to the next one here. How do the Dolphins prevent a trap game? And I've talked about this a little bit in preview videos. In my opinion, these trap games, these fall on coaching. This falls on Mike McDaniel, because you can't help but look ahead in the schedule. At San Francisco, at the Chargers, at the Bills, all playoff teams, all teams that are almost rivals at this point in time, with the Chargers and Herbert and the Bills being in the East, and the Niners and all the connections with the coaching staff and the Dolphins. How do you not look ahead? I'm looking ahead. I'll admit it. It's a 1-8-1 Texans. However, if Mike McDaniel practices what he preaches, the Dolphins shouldn't be looking ahead in this. We talked about it before. It's not one game at a time. It's not one drive at a time. It's literally one play at a time. You do everything you can to best execute that one play, and then you move on to the next one. So if he practices what he preaches, if the preparation is there, which it should be, the performance against a team like the Texans will be there as well. So how do you prevent a trap game? You listen to your coaching, and hopefully that is the message that he's giving to the team right now, which I expect that he is. I got one more question before we get to the final prediction for this, and it's the weekly question at this point. Do you think Byron Jones will play for the Dolphins again? And Mike McDaniel said it in a press conference earlier this week. He's kind of holding out hope. He still thinks that there is a chance. And my take on this and my theory remains the same. He's been on PUP for how long now? He was expected to be back week 1 to week 12. He's still not back. Even when he's activated from PUP, that much time off, is he going to be rusty? Are we going to be able to let him be on an island against a team's best wide receiver? How much help is he going to need? Because our defense is going through a transition where last year when it was X and Byron on the boundary and they could lock down wide receivers and we could bring that zero blitz, it was great. But guess what? We don't have the personnel this year on the boundary to be doing that. So now we're seeing a Bradley Chubb come in and rush the edges with Jaylen Phillips and trying to get there with 4 and putting more people back into the secondary. So we're kind of in a transition period right now with the defense, and bringing Byron Jones, does that limit, does that hinder that transformation of a defense? Do we come back and try to run back more of a zero blitz? Does it enhance our team? Can we do both things? All questions that we don't know the answers to because we have no idea what's going on right now with Byron Jones. So do I think he's going to play for the Dolphins again? Maybe. I'm sorry, I don't have a more conviction in my answer than that, but every single week it's the same thing. It's Mike McDaniel talks to the media on like Monday, and it's no change. We expect him to be back at some point. So I'm guessing, if I'm a fortune teller, we'll probably hear the same thing Monday as well. But let's jump into the final score prediction. And damn it, Dolphins fans, I hope to God that I am not jinxing the team, because every single time I predict a double-digit victory, the Dolphins make these close as hell. But I'm going Dolphins 31, Texans 14. But I see this game as an opportunity. And I'm going to make a little bit of an analogy here, because I remember Tom Brady in his heyday with the Patriots said, you want to hit your stretch of best play around Thanksgiving time. And guess what? That's where we are. You don't want to peak too early. You can't afford to peak too late. You got to hit your stride now as the playoff picture starts forming. So what did we see the last few weeks? Close game against the Steelers, close game against the Lions, close game against the Bears, kind of put the Browns away. But that's what you got to see more of. These teams that are playoff teams, the Bills, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the 49ers, I expect close games. But if you're going to play a team like the Bears or the Steelers or the Texans, these teams that are more so playing for the future, we don't want to be hanging around in games with these teams. These games are opportunity to prove that you belong in that upper echelon and put the game away. So what do you do against the Texans? You take advantage of that league worst rush defense. And yes, Raheem Mostert is doubtful, but man, Jeff Wilson has been everything and more ever since that he joined this team at the trade deadline. You get him going with Wilson, you get more people in the box, boom. You got one of the NFL's best passing offenses. There's literally no reason that the Dolphins offense should have hiccups in this game. And we just talked about Kyle Allen starting. Kyle Allen's not a terrible quarterback, but he was a backup for a reason. You take advantage of these types of games. You win these types of games. And not only do you win it with conviction. I've got about a 17-point spread here. I think they're favored by 14 by Vegas this week, which I believe is the tops in the entire NFL this season. So I'm kind of right there with where Vegas is on this one, but that is what I have got for a final score prediction, Dolphins fans. But like I said, I want to hear yours as well. Drop that prediction in the comment section. Let's fill that puppy up with a bunch of Dolphins victories. For the recap video, I will be back at some point on Sunday. I'm trying to figure some stuff out right now as to whether or not it'll just be a recorded video that I release after the game. There's an opportunity I might get to go live like I did following the Browns game as well. So if I'm able to go live, I'll put something on the YouTube community page giving a time that you can expect that as well in case you want to tune in live. But that is what I've got for today, Dolphins fans. Enjoy the game against the Texans. Let's get that win, and Fins